I've said it before and I'll say it again. Tottenham Hotspur are doing it the hard way since 1882. Jesus, mate, is it ever stressful being a Tottenham fan? At the end of last week, it felt like something magical was happening, something crazy was changing, and that we were kind of in a different place to where we've been all these years, right? Because we just signed Mohamed Kudus from West Ham, and there was this report that Morgan Gibbs-White, here we go, Morgan Gibbs-White to Tottenham, release clause triggered. And we're like, wow, what's going on here? Who's doing this? Is this Tottenham? Is this really Daniel Levy? Is this what he's decided to do now? He's going to actually play release clauses and get players of a proven Premier League quality that fit his manager's style of play and all the rest of it. We couldn't believe it. It was like living in dreamland. And the other thing that I then saw was a report that there was this investment coming in for stadium naming rights, and that there was a lot of managerial changes coming, and that Daniel Levy may even be moving to a non-footballing role. And I'm living in dreamland. I'm like, wow, this is. I'm watching all the YouTube channels and all the rest of it. Everyone's like over the moon, you know, top of the world. Daniel Levy's going to stop messing about with football. We're going to get out there and start playing players, Premier League proven players, and you know, we got this player, we got Morgan Gibbs-White coming, and then, you know, we're not done yet, there's still more to come, and everything felt amazing, absolutely amazing. And here we are. What day is it today? It's now Wednesday, and the Morgan Gibbs-White scenario continues to be at the top of everyone's agenda. Forest have said that they're threatening legal action and threatening to report to the Premier League and all the rest of it because of an illegal tap-up, which seems unlikely that Tottenham would do something illegal. We don't normally do stuff like that. I know we've had the guy on TalkSport, Crystal Palace fella, what's his bloody name? Simon Jordan, that's it. Him talking about how Daniel Levy did it to him over Wayne Routledge and stuff like that. But he also said it happens. It's how it goes. You know that you know, you can't. How can you talk to a club about a player if you don't even know if the player's even interested in coming to you? So what's the point in even talking to him? So there has to be an element of conversation at some point. So somewhere along the line, this release clause has been mentioned, and it could have been Gibbs-White himself talking to one of his mates, or it could be the agent talking to someone, or it could even be Edu talking to Venkatesham about it, you know, maybe, you know, let it slip or something like that. But either way, the release clause is there, which means that Gibbs-White gets to leave the club for that fee. They agreed to have this release clause in there, and therefore they should stand by it. Now, the fact that they're saying it's an illegal approach and all the rest of it because we happen to know exactly what the thing was, well, that's neither here nor there. At the end of the day, I can't believe that you can keep anything secret these days in that kind of scenario. So, you know, I'm not buying it. You know, I'm not buying it. I think this is just a delaying tactic. From what I kind of understand as well, I've heard the rumour that potentially they're only delaying it because the release clause may be that he can only go for that money if they're not in Europe. Now, with the Crystal Palace scenario, which is a whole nother diabolical situation, with that situation and them being demoted, meaning Forest go into the Europa League, that could make Gibbs-White's contract and release clause null and void, maybe, and maybe that's what's behind it or whatever. But it's all rumour and innuendo. None of us really know what's going on. All we know is that Marinakis is really not happy about it for whatever reason, and they're either trying to force some more money, or they're going to try and force the player to stay, which is stupid really, because he's never going to then sign another contract, and then you're going to have to sell him or lose him for nothing. If you remember, it's not that long ago where Charlie Kane got an absolute kicking for not having a release clause in Harry Kane's contract and relying on a gentleman's agreement, which then never came. So he didn't go to Man City, so he just rode out his contract, said he wouldn't sign another one, and off he went to Bayern Munich, straight up, as soon as he was in his last year, and Tottenham had to accept the deal that they were given. Now, luckily for us, he was still banging them in and still having a great season, but that could have been an awful lot worse. So it's always fair in love and football, I guess, and it just seems odd to me that we're kind of still banging on about this with no kind of end in sight. I mean, I was hoping that it would all be sorted out over a couple of days, but clearly not. So yeah, really disappointing that we haven't put that one to bed. But the more frustrating thing about that is it seems to have stopped everything else. We're now not hearing about anything else, any other players that we may have been linked to, any other players that we may have been working on, and you makes you start to think to yourself, is everything based on getting Gibbs-White before we can then look at what we're doing as a next step? Surely these other plans are going in, at the same time, corresponding with each other along the same lines. So, but that's the frustrating thing, okay, I can get it. We can't listen about Gibbs-White. That's kind of stuck in a limbo somewhere. Someone's working on that. But what else are we doing? What other stuff is going on? Are we looking at other players in other positions, or aren't we? That's the question. And also, what's happened about this funding? This extra 150 million from ENIC allegedly, and 300 million in terms of stadium naming rights. What's happening about that? Why has that all gone quiet? And of course, the changes at the top with Daniel Levy and so on. Is he going to just focus on non-footballing matters and leave the football to Venkatesham? Jesus, I will get it right at some point. Is it all going to be left to him to look at it from that point of view, and the other person that ENIC have brought in to steady the ship? Because I guess there is an awful lot of other stuff that needs Levy's attention. The one thing that is interesting though is the amount of people that are kind of going, we've got Levy in our corner, he'll get this contract thing with Gibbs-White sorted out because he takes no prisoners. Which is probably the first time I've really heard anything positive about Daniel Levy for several years now, because they know that he is a hard negotiator and likely to get what he wants, but we shall see. So yeah, I don't know, it's just a bit of a frustrating one, hasn't it? It's been sort of fairly quiet for the last few days, so not really been able to talk about too much, but it just feels a bit more of a frustration again. Whereas I felt like we were on a roll and things were really going on. It was starting to get really positive, and then it's all gone quiet again, and we're back to the same old Tottenham again. So, yeah, really frustrating situation. But I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that the Gibbs-White thing's going to get resolved? Is he actually going to come, or are we going to walk away from that deal because it's getting too much, and then eventually lose out to Man City or someone paying double the amount or whatever, which seems not too far-fetched, to be honest with you. Other teams seem to be going for it. Liverpool are spending money. Looking now at Isaac from Newcastle and stuff like that. So we cannot afford not to start making these deals. I'm not saying that we should be able to compete with the Liverpools and the Man Cities and the Chelseas with the money they spend, but we certainly need to be focusing on getting ourselves closer to them to at least be able to challenge for some of those competitions, because otherwise we're just going to get cut adrift. So this summer is really important. We've started to show some intent. You cannot back off now. You've got to really make it happen. So fingers crossed this is just a lull in the storm whilst that's being sorted out, and they're focusing on finishing that deal whilst others are ticking along and hopefully going to be sorted out fairly quickly behind them. But you know, the first pre-season match will be upon us this weekend, so you know, we really want to see these signings coming through the door, ready for the pre-season training and the pre-season build-up that we've got coming up. I think straight after, I mean, it's not so long after this one. I think they're off to Hong Kong or somewhere. So be interesting to see who actually gets on the planes to go there. But listen, fingers crossed this is just a lull, and we'll see what happens. I'll keep the belief that this is all going to go through, and things will sort themselves out very, very quickly. Anyway, thanks for watching. As always, I'll speak to you in the next one. Up the Spurs.